and welcome to this video. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a Days Until Christmas tracker. And the way this works is Christmas Day will be highlighted, so you can set your Christmas Day, and this will work every year. So you set Christmas Day in this cell, and then today's date is set automatically. The days until Christmas are calculated automatically. And today is November 30, so today's date is going to be highlighted in this red color. Christmas Day is going to be highlighted in this green color, and every day that goes by before Christmas Day is going to be scratched. And all of this is created using conditional formatting. You're also going to learn the formula used to get this to work every year. So if I go to December 2023 and select Christmas Day, then everything gets updated automatically. Nothing is scratched because these days haven't passed yet. So if you're interested in learning how to make this, I'll walk you step by step so you can take the logic of how this works and then you can apply it to other templates. So let's get into it. Now, the very first thing I always recommend when you're following one of my tutorials is that whatever I do, you do the same thing in the exact same cell, because in the end you do get access to the finished product. And if you get confused along the way, you can always check that finished version and everything will be in the exact same place. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up the layout. So I'm going to click here, then I'm going to press shift and click on column C, and that selects everything. And I'm going to make them smaller, and then I'm going to add a few more columns to the right. So I'm going to select everything from column T to column C. I'm going to right click and insert 7 columns right, just so I have a bit more space. Now I'm going to create my main container. So I'm going to start on cell B2 and I'm going to select everything until cell C17. And then I'm going to set a border. So I'm going to come into the border section. I'm going to select a black color and I'm going to create a border. Then I'm going to start with December. So I'm going to come to cell K4 and I'm going to select 7 cells to the right and I'm going to merge them. And I'm going to write Christmas Day. And then I'm going to select 2 rows below and 7 cells to the right, and I'm going to merge again. Now this is the cell where I want the user to be able to set their Christmas Day. And the way I get this calendar, so if you double click, you get a calendar, and the way I get that is by selecting that cell and then clicking on data, data validation, and then date. Then you leave this as is valid date. You select the reject input, you check this box to show a validation help text, and then you click on save. So now if I double click, I'm able to select a date. So I'm going to select December 25, 2022, and that's what pops up. So let's give it a bit of formatting. What I always like to do to all of my templates is I like to select everything. So I'm going to click on this square right here. I'm going to select everything, and I like to always center everything, and then I like to vertically align it in the middle, and then I like to wrap my text. And then I want this to look nicer, so I'm going to click on format, number, custom date and time, and you can select any option that you want, or you can customize it yourself. So if you delete everything, you can click in here and you can start building your formatting yourself. So you can do that, or you can select one that's already shown in here. So I'm going to select this one and I'm going to click apply. I want to be able to tell where these cells are, so I'm going to start by adding the borders. So I'm going to click on borders, select the black color, and then I'm going to select all borders. So now that I have my Christmas Day set, I'm going to bold it. I'm going to move on to creating the December calendar. So I'm going to create this one first, and I'm going to use that one to just duplicate November and January. And I'm going to select 7 columns and 2 rows, and I'm going to merge them. And then I'm going to give it a border. And then I'm going to select this row below, and I'm also going to give it a border. And then I'm going to select 6 rows and 7 columns, and I'm going to give that a border. So this is the layout for my December calendar. So we already know that Christmas Day will always be on December. So we're going to use this date to set the first day of December here. There's many ways to do this, but this is the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to do equals, and then I'm going to do the formula date. And as you can see, you have to give it a year, a month, and a day. So I'm going to reuse the year and the month from this date, and then I'm going to set 1 as the day. So the way I reuse those is I'm going to do year, parentheses, and I'm going to select Christmas Day, and I'm going to close parentheses. And then I'm going to do comma, the month, I'm gonna open parentheses, I'm gonna select Christmas Day once again, then comma, and finally 1 as the day. Now I'm gonna fix this value so it's always referencing Christmas Day, and the way I'm gonna do that is I'm going to add this $sign right before the column and right before the row, or you can also just set your cursor there and press F4 on your keyboard, and that gets you that same result. And right now this is what it looks like, but it's going to end up looking like this, as if you only had the month and year label, but it's actually a hidden date. And we're gonna use it in our calendar logic, which is why I left it as a date and not as a simple label that just says December. So now onto how the calendar works. The most important thing in this calendar is to figure out the day that's supposed to go in here. Once you figure that out, all you have to do is add 1 day on every following cell. So it's really not that hard once you figure out this one cell. So first I'm going to show you a very simple way to do this that will end up being very manual, and then I'm going to show you how to automate it so this works with any calendar that you create. So I'm going to select this cell, I'm going to click on data, and I'm going to go to data validation. I'm going to select date, leave it like this, reject input, show help text, and click on save. And now I'm gonna double click and the calendar will show up. In this tutorial, I'm gonna show you how to create calendars that start on Sunday and end on Saturday. If you wanna learn how to make it more dynamic, you can comment down below. So I'm gonna set this day. So this is what we're going for. We want our calendar to look like this. So we want it to start on November 27 and we want it to end on January 7. So I'm gonna select this very first Sunday. And I'm going to make this larger just for this part of the tutorial, and then I'm gonna make it smaller again so it looks pretty. So I'm going to select all of those columns, and as long as you drag one, if you selected a bunch of them, the size of all of them is going to be increased equally. So now I have my first day, and after that it's really simple. All you have to do is do equals, select your previous cell, +1, enter. And then I'm gonna click and drag. Now I'm gonna lose my borders here, I'll bring them back later. And then when you get to this point, you have two options. You can either do equals, use the date above, and then do +7, which gives you December 4. Or you can do equals, choose this last one, and do +1. So it's entirely up to you. And then right below, it's the same thing. You do equals, this cell, +1, and then you can click and drag, and once you have this second row, the rest of them will behave exactly the same. So you can just select them and click and drag, and as you can see, your calendar starts on November 27 and it ends on January 7, which if we look at a December calendar, that's what we have. Right now I'm just gonna forget about my border that got all messed up. Now for the weekdays, you can totally do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday manually. But what I like to do is I'm gonna come into my first cell, I'm gonna do equals, I'm gonna select the date below, I'm gonna press enter, and I'm gonna click and drag that formula all the way over here. So all I did is duplicate whatever I had below. And now I'm gonna play around with the number formatting so I can get a weekday label. So I'm gonna go to format, number, custom date and time. I'm gonna select one that has just the day, so I can either select any and get rid of everything. So I'm gonna do that, and once I have this day option right here, I'm gonna use day as an abbreviation, and I'm gonna click apply. So now I get these labels right here, and the reason I like to do it this way is if your user changes their country, for example, so let's do maybe France. So if we change this to France and we reload, then this changed automatically as well. And if you did that manually, this wouldn't happen. So that's why I like to do it this way. I'm gonna bring it back to United States. So right now, since I set this manually, if I change this to December 2023, this calendar won't be updated automatically. So what we're gonna do next is we're going to create a formula that ties this cell to this cell. So whenever this changes, this will be updated as well, which will result in this whole thing being updated. So the only thing you need to figure out to get this to work is this formula right here. So first we need to know something. We need to figure out where this very first day of December will be located throughout our days of the week. I'm gonna make this bigger to show you an example. So I'm gonna use the formula weekday, and I'm gonna select my December 1st cell. I'm going to close parentheses, and I just get a number. And what does this number mean? Every single day of the week has a number associated to it starting on Sunday. So I'm going to leave it as a reference here. So you have 1, 2, all the way down to 7. And day 1 is going to be Sunday, day 2, Monday, and so on until Saturday. So right now, this formula, this weekday formula that I applied to December 1st is giving me the number 5, which is Thursday. And as you can see right here, we have December 1st, and that's Thursday. So that's the way you figure out your weekday. So right now you have 2 key pieces of information. You have the very first day of the month you're working with, and you have the weekday in which that day falls. So for this particular month, if I wanted to get this date, I would have to take the very first day of the month, which is this one right here, and I would need to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4. And if my first day of the month fell on a Friday, I would need to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if it fell on a Saturday, I would need to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So you might have noticed a pattern in which, in order to get the first Sunday, I need to subtract my weekday minus 1. So in this example, my weekday is 5, and I need to subtract 4 days to get my Sunday. So the formula I'm going to use is I'm going to do equals the first day of the month minus, and then I'm going to get the weekday of that first day of the month. I'm going to close parentheses, I'm going to subtract 1, then I'm going to close parentheses. So what's inside this parentheses in this particular case is going to result in 4. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this date, which is the same date as this one, and I'm going to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I press enter, I get my same November 27, but now it's automated. So I am going to stop highlighting this so it doesn't confuse you. And now if I change the month to pretty much any month, my entire calendar is going to update automatically. So let's do December 2023. This is what we're going for. We have November 26, 2023 at the beginning, which is here, and then we have January 6, 2024 at the end, which is here. So everything works properly, and this will work. Remember, I mentioned this works from Sunday to Saturday. If you wanted to start on a different date, then you need to tweak the formula. So this formula will work if you want a calendar that goes from Sunday to Saturday. So now that we have our functionality, I'm going to start playing around with conditional formatting. So I'm going to start with this cell. As I mentioned, we want it to look like this. So I'm going to go with format, number, custom date and time, and I'm going to pick one that has just the month and the year. So this one, and now I only have December 2023, even though behind the scenes, this is an actual date. It's December 1st. Now I'm gonna bold it. I'm going to delete this. I only use this as an example. I'll fix the width later. So something I always like to do to my calendars is I like to have any date that does not correspond to the month we're working with to be highlighted in a different color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this entire set of dates. I'm going to click on format, conditional formatting, and then I'm going to select format cells if, and then custom formula. So I'm going to do equals the month in K11. And the reason I use K11, it's because that's the first cell of my range. So this formula will be applied to every single one of these cells, and this will be shifted accordingly. So to set my formula, I'm going to use this very first cell of my range. And what I want to do is, if this month is different from the month in cell K8, and I'm going to fix K8 using this $sign. So I'm going to do $K, $8, and I'm going to close parentheses. So if the month on each corresponding cell does not match the month on this first cell that I have right here, then I'm going to apply some formatting to that. So I'm going to select this second gray color, and then I'm going to select some gray here in the middle, and I'm going to click on done. So what I have here right now is any date that does not match this month will be highlighted differently. Now I'm going to go back to December 2022 because that's where we are at the moment of this video being filmed. Now I'm gonna apply another rule. I want to highlight Christmas Day. So I'm gonna select that same range. I'm gonna go back to Format, Conditional Formatting, add another rule. Again, I'm gonna choose a custom formula. I'm gonna do K11 equals, and then I'm gonna use this cell, which is K5, which is my Christmas Day. So I'm gonna do $K, $5. So the date that matches this date is going to be highlighted in, I'm gonna do this green color, and then I'm gonna bold it. Done. Now I also want to highlight the current day. So again, I'm gonna add another rule. And there's two ways to do this. You can select this date is option and select today, or you can do a custom formula, which is what I always like to do. So I'm gonna do equals K11 equals today, close parentheses, and then I'm gonna highlight it in red and maybe with a white font, and then I'm gonna click on done. So today is November 30. Why isn't this being highlighted? That's because this rule is taking precedence over this rule. So if I bring it all the way to the top, then this rule is going to be more important and it's going to be applied first. So now I'm going to close this and I'm going to have this be only numbers. So I'm gonna select my entire range of dates and I'm gonna click on Format, Number, Custom Date and Time, and I'm gonna pick one that has just the day. Again, if you don't have it, you can choose it from here. So I'm gonna pick just the day, and there you have it. That's your mini calendar. Now I'm gonna select this range of cells and I'm gonna make it smaller so it looks better. In this example, we have November to the left and January to the right. So let's add those. So I'm gonna select my entire calendar. I'm gonna copy it and then I'm gonna paste it on cell C8. And then I'm gonna paste again on cell S8. Right now, they are all December. So what I'm gonna do to change that is I'm going to use the eDate formula, which allows me to add or subtract months to a specific date. So we're gonna do equals eDate, and then I'm gonna select my start date, and I'm gonna do -1 because I want to subtract 1 month. And that gives me November. So right now this is messed up and I'm gonna show you why in a moment. And then we're gonna do equals eDate. Again, we're gonna select this month and then we're gonna do 1, which is going to add 1 month to this date, which is December 1st. So what we're gonna have here is January 1st. These are actual dates. They're just formatted to not show the day, which is day 1 of each corresponding month, and this is messed up as well. Now, the reason this is not working properly is I'm going to click on any of these days, Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to select this rule. So as you can see, now it's being applied to all of my calendars. And if you recall, we fixed our comparison to cell K8. So every single one of these is getting compared against the month of December. Since we want this rule to be shared among all of our calendars, that's not going to work. So something that I like to do, and this is going to work because my calendars are lined up horizontally, is I know that this row will always match its corresponding month. So row 13, this section right here, is always going to belong to the actual month. So this row might jump into a different month, these two rows might jump into a different month, but this one will never jump into a different month. I'm going to leverage that and I'm going to use this row inside this formula. So as you may recall, this isn't the way you created the rule originally. You used cell K11, but since I applied this rule to this range as well, cell C11 became my first cell and this was updated automatically. So I'm gonna leave it like that, but then in here, I'm going to do cell C $13. And now everything works properly. So what's happening here is this cell is going to use this cell as a reference. This cell is going to use this cell as a reference. And since we're working with cell C11 is going to use cell C13 as a reference. That's why this formula looks like this. And this is why it's important to follow the tutorial using my exact same cells. So everything always looks exactly the same for you, because at least for me, when I started learning conditional formatting, it was super confusing trying to understand which were the cells that I was supposed to use within my rule whenever I was using a custom formula. As you can see, it works properly now, so I'm going to click on done. Now I'm going to apply one last conditional formatting rule. So as you can see in this calendar, today is November 30, and every single day before today is getting scratched, and that will happen all the way until December 24th. Because that's the way I want it to happen. So this is a days until Christmas tracker. So I want to scratch every single day so I can only see the days I have left until Christmas in white. So before I do that, I'm going to set today's date in this cell. So I'm going to select this first row right above my November calendar, and I'm going to merge it, and I'm going to do today. And then I'm going to select 2 rows, 7 columns. I'm going to merge, and this is where I'm going to put today's date. So I'm going to do equals and then today. I don't like the way this looks, so you can skip the going into the format, number, custom date and time if you already have a cell that looks exactly the way you want your current cell to look. So this one is actually the way I want this one to look as well. So I'm gonna click it, and then I'm gonna come into this paint format option right here next to the printer. And once you click it, it's gonna turn green. That means that whatever you click next is going to get that same formatting applied to it. So if you click something else by accident, you're gonna mess it up. What we're going for is I wanna select this, copy the format, and then I'm going to immediately click here. And that applies the exact same formatting. And if I select both these cells, I click on here, and then I click on today, then I got this formatting applied here and this formatting applied here. So I realize you might not be following this tutorial anywhere near Christmas. So instead of today, let's change this to pretend that today is November 30 for you as well. We're going to select this cell, and we're going to go into data, data validation, date, reject input, show validation, help text, and save. So now you're going to double click, and you're going to select November 30, 2022, and just make sure December is December 25, 2022, just for the sake of the example. So once you actually want to use this near Christmas, just remember to have this cell become equals today, open close parentheses, and that's going to have it update properly. But for now, let's just fix it to November 30. Now, since we're pretending today is November 30, I'm going to select any cell, any day inside my calendars. I'm going to click on Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to come into this rule that is going to highlight my current day. And instead of using today in the formula, I'm going to use this cell, and I'm going to fix it using $C $5. And then I'm going to click on done. So even if you're not on November 30, this is exactly the same way it's going to look like for you. And if we change this to December 3rd, then that's going to be changed as well. So now let's create this scratching effect. So I'm going to do it in November. I'm going to select my entire calendar, and I'm going to click on Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to add a new rule. So I'm going to do a custom formula. I'm going to do equals, and since I want 2 conditions to be met, I'm going to use the AND formula. So I'm going to do AND, open parentheses. I'm going to use this first cell right here, and I'm going to do C11 is less than today, which is going to be fixed with the $sign to cell C $5. And then I'm going to do a comma. So what I'm saying here, if C11 is less than November 30, then that's our first condition being met. And our second condition is I also want cell C11 to be less than Christmas Day. If it's greater than Christmas Day, then I don't want it to be scratched. So I'm going to do C11 less than, and my cell K5. So I'm going to fix it, $K, $5, close parentheses. And now I'm going to give it some nice formatting. So I'm going to use this gray color. I'm going to use italic. I'm going to scratch it, and done. So if I come in here and I change my current day to maybe, let's say, December 14, it's not working in this calendar right now because I only applied the rule in here. So you can have that rule applied in here as well very easily. I'm just going to select this group of cells that correspond to my calendar in November. I'm going to click on this paint format option, and I'm going to click on this very first Sunday. And now the rule was applied here as well. You can also choose to apply it in January, doing the same thing, even though it's never going to be met because Christmas Day is always going to be in December. But let's just do that so they are all exactly the same. And now let's bring this back to November 30. And I don't like that it's getting highlighted on both calendars. So I'm going to select one of my days, click on Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to move around these rules to decide which one is going to take precedence. So this one, I want it to be at the top. So whenever a day does not correspond to the actual month we're working on, it's always going to be highlighted like this. And that's going to be the most important rule. If I select Christmas Day, December 25, then this is the rule that's taking precedence. But if I want this rule to take precedence, I can just put it at the top. So I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to bring this back to November 30. So now you have your entire functionality applied. And now I'm only missing this days until Christmas section, which is pretty simple. So I'm just going to copy this cell, paste it right here so it's faster. And I'm going to do days until Christmas. And then I'm going to select 2 rows, 7 columns. I'm going to merge it. I'm going to give it a black border. And this is very simple. I'm just going to do equals Christmas Day minus today. And there's 25 days until Christmas. So now let's apply some final touches to make it look pretty like this one. I'm going to start by giving it a title. So I'm going to merge these cells from C to L. I'm going to merge this and I'm going to give it a title. And I'm going to position this to the left. So a very quick way to delete everything below is you click on one row and you press Shift and Command at the same time and then down arrow. And you select everything below. So you just right click and delete rows. And I'm also going to delete this. I'm going to bring back my borders. I'm going to clear all my borders from this area and I'm just gonna give it outer borders. Once I have it looking like this, I can just select it, click on my paint format button, click here, paint format again, click here. So this only works once. If you click on the paint format, you can only apply it once to the very next thing that you click. So that's why I had to do it twice. So now they all look the same. Let's have all of my columns be the exact same width. So if you select all of them and then you just move one, they will all move. And then these ones, I also want them to be taller. So I'm gonna do that. And then I think Comic Sans is a more fun font for Christmas. I'm also going to make this bigger. And now I'm going to delete all of my grid lines so it looks a lot better. So I'm gonna do View, Show, and then I'm going to uncheck this grid lines option. Then maybe I'm going to make this row taller. Now, as you can see in here, I have this beige background, and the way you can select multiple cells that are not consecutive is by selecting a group of cells and then pressing Command and selecting another group of cells, Command, another group of cells. I'm on a Mac, I'm guessing it's Control for Windows. So Command, Command. Now you have to be very careful. If you forget to press Command, you are going to get rid of everything you selected previously. And then I'm gonna do this beige color. So now I'm going to give these two cells a red background and white font. So to select them both at the same time, I'm going to use Command as well. So I'm gonna do red with a white font, and then I'm gonna press Command so I can do green with a white font. And then I'm going to press Command again to select both. I'm going to do yellow with a white font. And let's make this larger. So let's do 20 maybe. And then I think this is missing borders. So let's do borders, this second gray color, and just inner borders. And once I did that, I'm going to click on this paint format and click here. And then since this is already selected, I'm gonna click on the paint format and click here. And then I'm just gonna do this, but obviously you don't have to do that. And there you have it. That's your days until Christmas tracker. Now remember, this will only work on calendars that start on a Sunday and end on a Saturday. And remember that this trick that I use to highlight cells that don't belong inside the corresponding month will only work for calendars that are lined up horizontally right next to each other because I used a specific row. I fixed that rule to a specific row in order for one single rule to work for every calendar. So if you want to know what I do with my calendars whenever they are not lined up horizontally next to each other, and if you want me to make a video about that, and if you want me to make a video on how to start on Monday, for example, then you can comment down below. That's it for this video. I'll leave the link to the Very Merry Christmas planner in the description down below, and thank you so much for watching.